love the fact that I'm finally able to sit down with another fellow American. First things first. Mr. Dan, is it Cohen? Am I saying it
Cohen.
correct?
Yes,
Cohen.
Cohen. Right.
Mr. Cohen, it's a pleasure to sit down with you, have these conversations with you, and to have someone that knows what it's like to experience a major situation when it comes to a family member, you know? So I want you to tell me a little bit more about Awakening in Real Life by
Sure.
you, Mr. Dan Cohen.
Sure. Please call me Dan. And I
Okay.
love your British accent. So, and my Brooklyn accent, but that's because you're in the UK, but not from the UK.
Well, of course.
Anyway, so awakenings in real life, the heart of it is my father had a 2 day awakening from dementia. But before I go into the exact story, I think it's important to understand a little bit about who my father was and the type of person he was. So he was probably my best friend, my confidant, my problem solver. There wasn't a conversation where he didn't end it with, I love you or I love you to pieces. He was a man who exuded love, especially when it came to his three children, and I'm the middle child and my mother. And he was a very big presence. In fact, one of my chapters of my book, Awakenings in Real Life, I say, who is your one? And I define the one as that someone in your life who loves you unconditionally and hopes that you surpass them. They have no ego when it comes to you. And my father was that for me.
Totally understand that perspective. But speaking of perspective, one thing that really stood out to me while just reading your story is, remember I told you earlier off camera that I was
Right,
studying psychology.
right.
I noticed that there's like a sense of what psychologists will sometimes call a big ambiguous grief. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but ambiguous grief.
No, I think I've heard the term, but explain to me what that
So
is.
I noticed this is something you may have went through when I was reading the book. Ambiguous grief is basically where someone is physically present, but psychologically or emotionally feels like they're slipping in and out of reach.
Right.
So that's what I was as I was reading it.
Yeah.
That's what
You're
it
you're
felt like.
you're
Is it? I'm kind of curious. Is that something you feel like that? Is there something that resonates with you at all?
100%, and you're exactly right. As the person is fading mentally, and
Yeah.
they go from losing short-term memory. There are some people at the end they don't recognize their loved ones. My father, for the most part, still knew who we were, so he gave us a great gift. But it's just at the end, towards the end, my father was incontinent.
Okay, yeah. When I dove deep into the awakening, I wanted to know specifically what exactly happened when your father woke up. Was there like an emotion? Was there something he said? What happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in 2015, my father had pneumonia twice.
Okay.
Second time they brought him in the hospital, he was also hypertensive. They loaded him up with steroids and antibiotics. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in a New York hospital. I lived in New Jersey, but I would come back. So I walk into his room and he says, Hi, Danny. And I said, Hi, Dad, because you know I love you very much. I said, I love you very much. He says, What happened to me? So I said, Look, you have pneumonia, you're being treated, and you're going to go home soon. A conversation I would have had with him, but all of a sudden I realized this is not the guy I saw a few days ago in the last stages of dementia. This looks and feels like the dad before the stroke.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it was remarkable. And then I'm saying maybe he's not asking me what happened to me now, but where have I been these last 10 years?
Yeah. Okay.
And, and my brother, who's a doctor, so he was associated with the hospital, was there a lot. So if I had to put it into percentages, I would say he was 90% the guy I remembered. My brother said, Well, I don't put it in percentage. The bar was so low that he came back so high that his hair on his head stuck up from what happened. And when I told you from perspectives, my brother, he was a doctor, so he almost took on the mantle of the problem-solving guy, especially with medical issues, but with other issues. But even through that, my father was always his guy, when he needed advice.
Right.
And for my sister too. So he said that when my father came back, it was amazing to him. And we had 2 days of experiencing conversation with my father, and some really powerful things happened, which is the reason I first wrote an article and then wrote the book.
Yeah. When you said he came back, I started to read that. Did
Yeah,
you, in that process, did you genuinely feel like you had your father back?
100%,
Mm.
90%. I put in 90%.
Okay.
He was the guy that I loved. And when I tell you the things that happened, it
Yeah.
was so typical him. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
He was 90% the guy he was.
Okay.
He really was. He was verbal. He was loving. His personality shined through. He
Yeah.
could have conversations. It was remarkable. It really was.
Okay.
So for instance, at one point he says to my brother, says, "I'm happy to have a son like you." And
Okay.
to my brother who he was worshiped this man too.
Yeah.
And to not see that guy for 10 years, to hear that from his father again,
Yeah.
he says it was one of the most remarkable moments of his life. It really was.
Hmm.
So we started because when he had the stroke, there were 7 grandchildren. One girl was my daughter. So we a lot of boys. They knew him when they were younger, but not when they got older, he had the stroke. So we started to fill him in on the grandchildren. Oh, this one's doing this and this one's doing that. And he would say, "Wow, that's great. That's fabulous. I knew this one had an acumen to do this like that."
Yeah.
And then he says, "Didn't one of the grandsons start medical school? And didn't one of the grandsons start an Ivy League school?"
Wow.
And we said yes. But here's the amazing thing. Those events happened while he was in the depths of dementia.
Hmm.
Didn't happen before, so he would know it. It would happen right in the thick of thing. So my brother and I think, how did he know this? Because
Yeah.
you think when a person has dementia, certainly in certain stages, they sit there, they're not verbal. Nobody
Right.
knows exactly what a dementia person knows or not. This led us to believe that he was much more aware of what was going on than we thought, that he was a
So,
lot more present, even though he couldn't express it, than we thought.
so you do think your father understood what was happening to him?
I do.
Hmm.
I think that if he knew those kind of things, that there was a part of him that was much more aware of what was going on than you think by just looking at him. And someone gave me the example of, when someone's in a coma, right? They
Hmm.
tell you, talk to the person, they could hear you, right? So you
Yeah.
have to be, and then you hear stories when people come out of the coma and they
Hmm.
repeat certain things that the person told them. So I think that we can never underestimate the human spirit, the human brain, the human mind. And this showed us that, yeah, he was aware. And I think that's an important message because I was in a support group and someone said, "Wow, isn't it great that my loved one with Alzheimer's is in their own world and they're
Mm.
happy in their own world?" And on the face, it sounds good, right? They're sitting there and their own world. But no,
Yeah, but like, and the thing is, the perception and the reality. The perception is what you go back to, and the perception is, no, it's just that this was a big personality. This is not someone who actually liked to be alone. This person liked
right.
coming in, being the center of attention,
Yeah,
having a big voice, being around
yeah,
family.
that's
So,
right.
for yeah, it's easy to on the outside show, yeah, that's fine. They're in their own world, but no, we know on the inside, internally, that that's probably the worst thing that they can go through.
And I never did it. So
Yeah.
my other thing is accept them for where and include them. Okay.
Yes.
So I wrote an article before he had this awakening, and I wrote, and there's a chapter in the book calls it too. I wish
Okay.
I could flip a switch and wake up my father. I know he's in there.
Yeah.
And my feeling was is the man I love, he's there. I
Yeah, I
know
know.
he's there, right? And
Yeah,
I
I
wish
get
I
it.
could, right? And the amazing thing is, it happened for us. He all of a sudden woke up. I mean, what I wished for happened, but most people, people will have moments of clarity, they'll remember something, but I haven't heard of another situation where someone had 2 days like this. His neurologist said he never saw it in 30 years of practice. My brother asked college, said nobody ever saw anything like it. But I always, so when I would come to visit my parents, and I lived far away, when I would come, we big movies lovers. My father loved movies. I'm a big movie lover. My children are big movie lovers, especially my son. I would take my parents out to the movies
Mm-hmm.
and lunch. Okay.
Yeah.
Even when he was using a walker or then a wheelchair, it didn't matter how hard it was to get him in and out of the car, I took him. And I knew 5 minutes after he left the movie, he wouldn't remember that he saw the movie. He had zero short-term memory. But sometimes in the movie, especially if it was sad, you could see tears in his eyes. So from in the moment, he was there.
Okay. And so, Dan, as I was telling you earlier, that your book makes me curious of certain emotions, right?
Sure.
So the other emotion that I was always curious of was the anger. If there was any anger, if you were angry, what will you be angry at? Would you be angry at medicine? Would you be angry at yourself? Were you angry at God? Where were you angry at? Like, just being fully transparent here. If you had to really think, who did you blame?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think it's hard not to be angry
Yeah,
that this has
it's normal.
happened.
It's
It's
normal. It's
normally to
natural.
happen to your loved
Yeah.
one. And I don't think it matters whether it was a quiet person or not a quiet person. He just
Yeah.
happens to be a big
It's
personality. He
just
happens to be an important. Yeah, you're angry as to why did this happen? You
yeah.
know, why did he have to get a stroke that led to dementia? I needed him. I needed him. I wrote, I remember during COVID, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I had an underlying lung condition, so I was scared out of my wits with that. And I remember saying to a very dear friend, I wish I had my dad because he had been gone 5 years at the point. And he says to me, we are our dads. And his message was, look, we're at a certain age now where we've gotten wisdom and things, and we can handle our own problems. And
Hmm.
I understand the sentiment, but again, I don't think you
Yeah.
ever lose that time to need that
Yeah.
person. So there were many times that year, whether it was business related or personally, that I could have used just hearing his voice. And so if I was going through something, he would say, don't whip yourself. And suddenly I felt better. So, don't whip yourself, meaning you have a problem, you'll face it and don't let it destroy your life. So I always needed him. So the anger came from the place of I don't have him as that presence in my life, but I never let the anger overwhelm me all because even in the dementia, I could see the loving person he was. So towards the end, right, when
Yeah.
you just sit in the chair and you didn't even, he would take my hand and he would kiss it. And I said, that's the essence of my father. He also reminisced about he was a boxer in the army,
Okay.
and he reminisced about his boxing career and why he was underestimated his opponents. He also reminisced, he loved a New York Jets football player. And for those of you in England, that's American football,
They're aware.
not
They are
soccer.
aware.
Especially with the World Cup going on.
Yeah.
So, He loved the football player, was undersized and had a great career and nobody expected. And he bought all the grandchildren his number 80 jersey. And he says, I remember the picture we took with all the grandkids in the jersey. He remembered that. So when I first wrote an article about it, I shared it with the football player and he reposted it on Twitter at the time. And another thing in my father, he was a big tipper. If you, especially in a service situation, if
Mm-hmm.
you took care of him, he liked to tip. He was a generous
Mm-hmm.
tip, and it didn't matter where we were on an economic scale. We weren't rich by no means. We were lower middle, whatever.
Yeah.
And he would tip people because he liked them, not even expecting tips. So
Mm-hmm.
again, he's lying in the bed another point. He says to my mother, "Do you have any cash?" She says, "What do you need cash for? You're in the hospital." Says, "I want to tip the nurses and the aides that have been so nice to me."
Mm.
So this was my father. He,
Yeah, that's when you knew a piece of him was here. You just knew it.
more than a piece of him was there, right?
More than a piece, right?
More than a piece.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get my kids there, right? Because they
Mm-hmm.
hadn't seen their grandpa in a long time. Unfortunately, they weren't living at home. I couldn't get them there till the end of the second day, and he had already reverted back. My daughter in particular was very emotional. We had videotaped a lot of this. Okay. My brother thought to videotape it. So at one point, and this next thing has led to my whole second career. This
So
next
was it? It
thing,
was a 2 day transition because when I read that, I flipped back and forth on those pages just to get a specific
two
time
full
frame.
days, two
Okay, because
full
I
days.
didn't get that clarity. I was just like, okay,
Oh,
how
okay.
long did it take from the children to get there to him to go back into it? Like I couldn't get the timeline. It didn't give me that
Yeah.
clarity. 2 days.
So
Wow.
he was himself for most of 2 days, right?
Okay.
Most of
Yeah.
40 hours. But then towards the ends of the second day, he was slipping back. You know what? I don't know how long it actually took.
Hmm.
But it was relatively quick to transition back. It was by the time I got them the second day, he had reverted back. So I don't know if it was an hour or 2 hours,
Okay.
or but it was not, it was a more sudden thing than a slow thing on the second day.
So for you during that time, Dan, did you feel like the return of dementia, did you feel like it was losing him twice when the return came back?
Yes and no. It
Mm,
was very, very sad. But we were so happy to have him back those 2 days, just to have him briefly back,
hmm
that I don't think we expected it to be long term. But one of the theories, so I have a couple theories why it happened. So my brother, the doctor, wanted to come up with a medical explanation. So his first explanation was, well, he was loaded up with steroids, which is an anti-inflammatory. It reduced inflammation of the brain and allowed him to have a temporary awakening. Sounds good, because he would say that when people are towards the end of life, a lot of times they would load them up with steroids that kept them alive longer. So I said to myself, boy, I don't know how something can reverse an irreversible downward condition. But I'll tell you what I did ask my brother. I said, can we, if that's the case, can we keep him on some steroid protocol
hmm
to keep him
Yeah.
alive?
Keep him
Right?
here. Why not? Let's figure this one
And
out here.
yeah. And he said, no, there's too much dangers to his health if we keep
Mm.
him on steroids. So, just as a side note, did you see the movie Awakenings with Robin Williams and Robert De Niro?
No. Awakenings
The-
with Robert De Niro and Robin
it's an
Williams.
older movie. You're
Okay.
a little younger than me, but it's a movie that is based on a true story about a doctor who used Parkinson's disease on catatonic patients.
Okay.
Okay. And the catatonic patients awoke. And Robin Williams played the doctor, and Robert De Niro played the patient. You should see it. It's a true story. And
Okay.
then they treated a whole bunch of patients in the hospital. They all woke up, but it was a temporary awakening. So
Oh, wow.
my dad's story is almost similar to that. So I had an idea as an update for that movie that you take people with Alzheimer's dementia and someone comes up with a steroid protocol and these patients awake and But that was the initial theory.
That's science for you, where it changes.
Yeah.
I swear the information changes day by day. So I can see that. For
That,
you during that time, I'm curious, what this gets done to you psychologically through this whole experience?
it's given me hope in the human spirit,
Okay.
and the abilities of the human spirit and mind. I think it's told me that no, that whatever mental situations people are going through or physical situations, I think your person is more aware of what's going on than you may think. And, acceptance and inclusion are very important. And I realized that in reflecting back on some of these stories, they were
Hmm.
almost like mini awakenings. They were like
Yes.
lessons that I learned. And I'm
Yeah.
going to share those stories. And then I give, as you noticed, reflection pages. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
want the reader to add their own comments, like if you're going through something with a loved one, when did you accept something that made it easier or not accepting? When did including someone in life is important? I have chapters about the importance of kindness.
Yeah.
My father loved to go to the horse track, and he wanted to go even through the course of his dementia. So
Yeah.
it's funny. Another way I knew how he had dementia was how he read the race form. He circled less and less things over the years until he could only saw the odds, and then he didn't know the odds. But we always would
Hmm.
park the car at a valet.
Hmm.
And even though general parking was right near the entrance, the valet you had to walk 100 yards, but my father liked the valet. All through the years, we kept getting the same man, right?
Hmm.
As my father got frailer and frailer, right, he would help me take out the walker. He would help me take out the wheelchair. At a certain point, he'd motion to me to get in the back seat. He'd drive us the 100 yards to the front. He could have been parking more cars and making more tips. At a certain point, until the very end, when we would leave, I don't know how he knew it. He was there with the car to take us back to the entrance. So this man, his small acts of kindness had such meaning for us. And I don't think he knew whether he had dementia or whatever. He just saw this was his family I could help. I talk about the importance of showing up. We had an uncle who was a bachelor uncle, but he was like a second father. He was always there for us. If we
Hmm.
went on vacation and he wasn't with us, whether it was 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, he would pick us up. He was the
Okay.
only one when my brother had children that had carte blanche to knock on the door. We had to call and ask if we could come. He could just show up. So, what's the importance in showing up in people's lives? So, I have a number of chapters like that. So, this incident allowed me to reflect back on my life and share other what I call mini awakenings or stories. So,
Yeah,
and
well, I'm proud of you for letting it out like
oh,
that. I think this is
oh,
a healthy way, Dan. This is like you said, who will want to hear your story? Well, someone in England that is American
and
wants to
I
read your story.
and I'm so appreciative of that.
Yes,
Yeah,
it comes in different forms, different shapes and forms. Like we stated earlier, it's all about perspective. So
that's
we're
right.
all able to see it if we can change the perspective of how we recognize new information, new phases, the new journey that we're in. If we go through the awakening, you know?
That's right. So an awakening, most people think it's a religious, a spiritual
Right.
thing, or a
No,
getting. It's also defined as a getting up. My father got up from dementia. But if you look at the definition, it's also a realization, recognition, or awareness
right.
of something. And it's not always a light bulb moment. Like you said, it can happen over time. So I said,
Gradually.
I said, I bet you there's some amazing awakening stories out there.
Yes.
And I'm not shy. Maybe I can tell them. So
There you did. And we got your book over here in England.
well, that book is about my story. The next book might be about these other people's awakening.
It happens, literally.
I've had two women on the show went through tremendous trauma, and their awakening was, I'm going to turn the trauma to coach and help other people. I
Right.
had a guy who lost his son at 16. It was terrible. His awakening was, I'm going to write a book to try to help other families.
Yeah.
I had a guy whose son,
It's a
yeah.
self-awareness. Everybody has these moments of needing self-awareness, needing realization of what to do with the one thing that's maybe either keeping you stagnant in life. or the one thing that we're afraid to come to a realization with. But as I
Mhm.
wrap up this interview, it was a pleasure
Sure.
speaking with you, Dan. I
Thank you.
do I do want to know if your father could fully hear and understand you for one final minute, what would you say to him?
Dad, did you like the book? Because I'll tell you why. When I think about it, I think I wrote the book for him. It's a love letter to him. And I know that if everybody, like in my family, they're all great, it's a great thing. He was my biggest cheerleader. He
Yeah.
would be getting a charge out of it. I would, if he was here, I'd be calling up and say, I had a great interview with a woman from England. He would have cheered every review. I mean, like he wrote it. So maybe I'm hoping that he is out there and knows what I did. But yeah, did you like the book, Dad? Because um, part I wrote it, I think, is a love letter to him. So,
Yeah. I
but
think the main reason you wrote it was for him. I would think if he didn't go through his journey, we wouldn't have heard from Dan. And I think
maybe not.
Dan
Maybe
needed to
not.
release, and we hope you like it, Dad.
Yeah. And listen, my mother passed away recently. Loved my mother too. She maybe got the, I knew my next book I got to write about my mother, but it was, yeah, he was this big presence. So I appreciate it. I hope your listeners would be interesting. Can I? Oh, there it is.
It is here. I'm gonna hope you guys are all listening. I'm gonna post about the book. We're gonna market the book. We're gonna tell everybody about the book. We're gonna push the book because we all need to go through the awakening phase, okay? Especially at this in these trying times right now with politics, with life is lifing out there. This is another episode of Shit That's Just Life with your favorite life coach, me, Cecile. And it was a pleasure speaking with you again, Mr. Dan. Thank you. Go Knicks.
Go
Keep
Knicks.
going.
Go
Okay?
Knicks.
Go Knicks. All
Exactly.
right.
Hey, Cecile, you were terrific, and I give you credit for what you do.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.